Okay, this is the next video in the Survival Cache series. I'm going to give you some tips, maybe some guidance on prepping your items to go inside the containers and how to pack your containers. The particular container I'm going to be showing you is one of the Rubbermaid styled containers with a locking lid. Some of these tips, guidance obviously will transfer over to other types of containers. Just take some of these tips, adapt them to what you need to fit what you have. Now, first off, I'm going to give you a list of some items I really recommend you do not put into a cache container. My particular reason for this is twofold. One, you do not know how long that container will be in the ground till you need to use it. You may think it may be a month, 6 months, or even a year, but you may not need it for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Who knows? Another thing that I give you on recommendations not to get is anything that will freeze. Remember, if it's going to be in the ground long term, we got this little thing called winter. In winter, things freeze. That can cause problems. So first off, items I recommend not to put inside your containers is any type of drinks. Cans of soda, bottles of alcohol, and that stuff. Only do that if it's going to be in a cache container that will be in a temperature controlled environment, where you're not going to have freezing. It won't be an issue. Along with that will be any chemicals, either medical or cleaning, or chemicals to use to make certain items, dual purpose items. Don't put those in the caches. Once again, they freeze. Also, they leak. As I mentioned in the basics video, experiences people have had with things like gun oils and that stuff, it somehow leaches out of the containers or leaks out of the containers because of freezing, and it gets forced out under the lids, or cans burst, and then it contaminates food. A possible way I've been thinking about on how to get around that problem, if you want to put containers of gun oil and that stuff inside a cache, is maybe use a smaller ammunition can. Say a 30 caliber ammo can. Take that container of oil, put it in a couple plastic Ziploc bags, put those inside the ammo can, close that up, maybe even wrap plastic around that just to waterproof that can against moisture, prevent rust, and then put that to the side inside your container, depending on what you're using, to prevent it, and then also separate the food to the other side of the container if you're putting it in the same one. Maybe that will help mitigate some of the contamination issues that could occur with the food. Another option is, if you're using tubes, do the same thing. Get those chemicals, put them in some type of can, tape a lid on top of it, put that down in the bottom of your container, and put the food closer to the top. Maybe that will cut down on contamination issues also, but no guarantee. Another thing I do not recommend putting into a cache is batteries. Possibly you could get away with, as long as they're an alkali type battery. They're not acid batteries. There aren't as many of those out there anymore. There are a few. They usually come from China. They're the super cheap batteries. But alkali batteries, maybe you can get away with putting those inside the ammo can or inside a can down at the bottom of the cache also. Otherwise, I really don't recommend them putting them in there. For those of you that are not aware of this, with the old acid batteries, you could extend their shelf life by keeping them cool. So people would put them inside of refrigerators to extend the life of the battery. With alkalis and other batteries, putting them in a cool environment actually drains the power quicker. It's just the way it is. And I actually found that out from a commo person in one of my units. When he took over in the commo room, he just came in. You know, he's seen how they were storing batteries, and he started kicking tail over that and let people know. And when they questioned it, he pulled up stuff on the internet and showed them. So try not to put batteries inside caches if possible. Things like toothpaste, I'm not sure on what the freezing point is on that. Maybe you could get away putting that inside a cache. Just go through, double bag it, triple bag it. Maybe start to vacuum seal it, but before it vacuum seals completely, you hit that Insta Seal on the vacuum sealer so that it doesn't completely, you know, crush the tube inside the bag. That's an option. Don't know, still experimenting, and I'm still checking in on that one. Something I really do not recommend putting into a cache unless it's in a temperature controlled environment is canned goods. I don't care how much you like Spam, how much you think you're going to need that Spam or that can of salmon. Don't put it in a cache that's going to be out in the environment, out in the wild, buried in the ground. If you have a winter where it freezes, those cans have a tendency to burst in the cold. And I'm sure someone's going to post articles about cans down in Antarctica that are over 100 years old that flash froze down there, and people take them, heat them up, and they're still good. I'm aware of that, but guess what? This isn't Antarctica, and those long-term freezing conditions don't happen here. You have a freezing and thawing cycle. That does cause your cans to burst. Another thing I do not recommend going into caches is MREs. MREs, for people that do not know, are not designed to freeze. With the freezing, thawing process, going from cold to hot, cold to hot, cold to hot, those packages, they kind of pull together when they freeze, and then when they warm back up, they expand out. Doing that over and over actually causes them to leak. How you can tell an MRE is bad because of freezing, when you look at the outer pouch, it will look vacuum sealed. So if you got any MREs that look like that, that MRE is probably spoiled. How you can check that? Cut open that outer pouch, look inside. If everything's wet, yes, the entree or the fruit or whatever is in it burst, and about the only thing you can actually use from that MRE would be your crackers, your bread, as long as those packages have not been compromised, and the accessory packet. The rest of it, you can't use it, you gotta toss it. Now, things you can put in a cache now. Things that I recommend and I also do put in my caches. First off, the biggest thing, food. Now, when I waterproof the items to put inside the container, before I waterproof the container, I use Ziploc bags. I prefer using the ones without the slides. This is your standard 1 gallon bag. This is typically what I use, but they do make 2.5 and 3 gallon Ziploc bags. These come really in handy for larger items. If the item is too large to fit in a bag like this, there's other types of bags that are out there. You can probably get them online that are heavier duty plastic. They may not be Ziploc, but maybe you can use that, put the item inside there, somehow remove the air, and maybe you can heat seal the bag to protect it against moisture. I always double barrier things, especially food. Exception to that, as I mentioned in the basics video, is spices. things like this that do not react well to moisture, I first put these inside the vacuum sealer, then it goes inside one Ziploc bag, and then that Ziploc bag goes inside another Ziploc bag. Now, what can fit in a 1 gallon bag? You can fit two 2-pound bags of rice or beans inside a 1 gallon bag. You can fit in there 4 of the soup pouches. Face 2 of them this way, and then on the other side, reverse it. They do fit in there. You can fit 8 packs of ramen noodles. Just alternate how they're in there. I put them in sets of 2. First this way, then this way, and then feed them in there. Something that comes in handy, especially during winter, is your little cup of soup pouches. This particular one here, I have 12 noodle soup or chicken noodle soup pouches. You can also do, it's like 12 or 24 onion soup pouches inside a Ziploc bag like this. I don't remember if it's 12 or 24 because it's been a little bit since I did them. Now, I did show this in the video on the 2-pound bags of rice when I recommended that for rations for you in the field. Take your bag, open it up, prep it. Take your 2-pound bag of beans or rice, put it in there all the way down to the bottom. Try to even it out as best you can. Take it, pull the excess over. Start to close the zipper. Make sure you get out as much air as possible, and then close it up. These I bag individually, the rice and the beans, because I look at it this way. I'm probably not going to use a full 2 pounds of rice, 2 pounds of beans at one time. I may use only a ½ pound or 1 pound, depending on what I need, what I'm doing with it. Well, when I use it in the field, I can open up this bag here, and then this is going to be the bag that will hold what's left that I don't use right away. 2 of these like this. I try to flip these over so I have the zipper facing down, and then the next one goes in like this. Start to close it. You may have to push the zippers in out of the outer bag. Start to close it. Press as much air out as you can, and then seal it up. Here. See, the bag does not open. It does pretty good. These are the double zippers. I recommend trying to get that, the freezer bags. I try not to use the sliders because I've had problems with the slider bags. If I do have any of those, I typically use them as the outer bag, the inner bag. I try to make sure to use the double zipper bag. Now, other things. Toilet paper. As you can see here, you can fit 2 rolls inside a Ziploc bag. I've tried different ways of fitting them in here. This is the only way that seems to work real good for these. Take them, squish them down, slide one in flat, the next one in on its side, put it inside one bag, and then put it in another bag. Each time you're putting it in a bag, you're squeezing out as much air as possible before you continue on. Now, if that's not going to be enough toilet paper for you, or you want more, you can fit 7 rolls inside the 2.5 to 3 gallon Ziploc bags. Squeeze them, try to get them as compact as possible, and these are double bagged also. Now, gear items. Depending what it is, will determine how many bags you're going to put it in. Things like clothing, like spare socks, spare t-shirts, spare drawers, and for those of you that don't know what drawers are, that's the Army term for underwear. Things like long johns, that type of stuff, I try to double bag those, because those are going to be right up against the skin. You're probably not going to get the chance to wash those if the cachet somehow loses its integrity against water and it gets water inside. Those I try to double bag. Fold them. Don't just toss them in there in a pile. Fold them as best as you can so that you get as many in a bag as possible. Things like gear, I typically will put it inside just one bag. And something I do, or at least used to do, to try to help out and also to identify the gear when it's in a bag. I take the zipper, fold it over. I try getting out as much air as possible. This bag's old. It's going to have to get replaced because there's holes in it. Bend it over and then put some 100-mile-an-hour tape or duct tape on it. Is duct tape waterproof? Hell no. But I kind of hope it helps. Now I'll mention this, if something is part of a set, like your canteens. If you put those in a cachet, you're going to want to have the canteen cup, and the carrier together. Things like this, mess gear. Inside here, the mess kit. There's also the utensils. There's a smaller Esbit cook stand in this one. I also include a P38 can opener if that's what I have. If I have another type of small compact can opener, I put that in there. I also typically include about half of a green scouring pad and a washcloth. You may not always have the time to put together the full mess kit cleaning station. You may only have, a fire team's worth of people. You may not go to the effort of putting together the 3 different containers of water to wash your mess gear. Recommendation on that, take one of those pots, use it like your kitchen sink at home. Get hot water in there or put drinking water in there, potable, clean water inside that big pot, preferably the biggest one that you have available to you. Heat that up. Put some of that powdered dish soap inside there. Stir it as best you can. Get it sudsy. It ain't going to get super bubbly like it will in your kitchen sink. It almost feels a little greasy when you put your hand in the water and that stuff. But use that as your kitchen sink. Take your mess gear, put it in there. Take that scouring pad, you use it on any scorch marks from the fires. Anything that's burned in there, any burned grease and that stuff, stuck on food, go through, use that scratch pad, scrub it off. And then take that washcloth, use it like your dish rag at home, go through, wash up your gear. And obviously at the end, clean those washcloths out, rinse them as best you can, and air them out. The stuff that you wash, set it to the side, let it air dry. So you got a little bit extra there on these types of kits. Why each item is inside a kit like this. Now, manuals, books and that stuff, recommend. Vacuum seal it because these really do not react well to moisture. So give it that extra layer. Toss it in a small vacuum seal bag, vacuum seal it up, and then still go through, put this inside 2 Ziploc bags. Now, some items you're just going to leave inside the container it comes in, or the package it comes in. Like this, we have a survival knife with ferro rod. This is just a cheap one that I got online. I have a few of them. I'm trying to throw one of these inside each little tote that would have a batch of cooking gear in it to go alongside or near the totes of the food in any location that could potentially be used as a base camp. These boxes, obviously, it's going to have a description on the side, but you may not see it. You want to make the let people know more obviously with the markings what's in here. So, you know, take a marker, write it that people can see it. With it staying inside the box like this, it cuts down on the possibility that it could puncture the bag also. These also get, well, these I think I usually do just a single bag on. I don't think I usually double these. So, something for personal hygiene. Whether you like it or not, you probably should get a hold of a gas mask or a protective mask. The enemy may not use chemical weapons against you, but you do run the risk that they might use CS or tear gas. In order to get that mask to fit to your face properly, you have to shave. And if you shave, that also cuts down on lice. Something that I found, you're not going to want to put cans of shaving cream inside your cache. They do make this type of stuff. Shaving powder. You just take a little bit of this, mix it in some water inside a canteen cup, put it on your face or wherever you're going to be shaving. And then just take a disposable razor, or if you had the safety razor, you know, put a new razor blade in it, go through, shave up, dispose of the disposable razor or that blade according to whatever little SOP you have. These get put in bags. I recommend that you keep this inside your rucksack or inside your shaving kit. Put this container itself inside its own little Ziploc bag to protect it against moisture as it's getting carried around. That's some of the items that I toss inside caches. This is not all inclusive. There's lots of other stuff. Like you've seen, the drink containers, as I mentioned, coffee, that type of stuff. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance or recommendations for actually putting the stuff inside a tote or a container. Now, first off, I recommend, if you go the route of putting chemicals inside the container, put it at the bottom or put it to the end like I mentioned. Next on that, put your heavy stuff on the bottom. Rice and beans do add up to quite a bit of weight. You do not want to stack this on top of packages of lighter stuff like your ramen noodles or your soup pouches. It could crush them, damage them, cause you a lot of problems. So, things you put on the bottom of your container first is your heavier items, and try to even out the weight as much as possible on the ends, at least on the tote like this, because it makes it considerably easier when you're carrying it. So you put the heavier stuff on the bottom, try to even it out, and then put the lighter stuff on top. The space here in the middle, put other items in here to keep stuff from moving. You want to maximize these containers and any cache container as much as possible. Pack everything you can in here. If there's a little bit of space left, you'll probably think of something to put inside. It could be another roll of toilet paper. It could be another bag of bean soup. It could be some bouillon cubes. It could be matches. I've gone through on some of the containers. I had enough room inside there. I could put a Ziploc bag filled with boxes of matches or books of matches inside them. If you remember from the basics video, load the container first, see what all's going to fit in there, where every item should fit. Then inventory. Write a list up of everything that's in here. How much? What is it? Take that inventory and do an inventory list. As you see, what I do with mine, I put on here what type of case it is. This is a B case type group rations bulk. When was this case packed? This one was packed last year in 2020. When was this inventoried? A couple months ago in June. And then underneath that, we had the contents. This particular case, obviously the ramen noodles do not go in there, but this particular case has 24 pounds of rice, 12 pounds of northern beans, 12 pounds of pinto beans, 2 rolls of toilet paper, 50 cubes of chicken bouillon, 50 cubes of beef bouillon, and 2 26-ounce of plain salt. The plain salt is meant for use with preserving fish or game, basically jerkying it so that you can maybe extend out what you have, get it to last longer, move it to the next location. And then I also put on my inventory sheets, notes, how to use what's inside that cache. Examples, preparing rice. Some of the basic instructions on how to take the rice and cook it over a campfire. There's also here preparation of dried beans, telling you step by step what you have to do to take those dried beans, clean them, rehydrate them, and then cook them. This list gets folded up, put inside a small Ziploc bag. Look like everything else, squeeze the air out, seal it up, and then this list gets put on top of everything. So as soon as you open up the cover of the case, it's right there on top, you can see what's in there. Now, when you're using a cache, you open it up, you don't take everything out of here, you only take out some of it. Make the adjustments on the inventory list. Change the inventory date, last time it was opened, and then change the contents accordingly. You took out 4 pounds of rice. You took out 2 pounds of beans, that type of thing. And then when you reseal the container, make sure that list is back on top again. Now the next video in this series will be prepping the container itself to go into the ground at the cache site. Now for all my engineer brothers in the Patriot and Militia movements, always remember Essayons.